You're now listening to Signed In Private Chat featuring Max Payne 3. Find us online at signedinpodcast.com. Hey everybody, welcome back to Signed In Private Chat. Private Chat. With the trademark Craig Whisper. This episode featuring Max Payne 3. And for those who are not familiar with Private Chats...
MP3!
If you're new to the Signed In family... Private Chats are us going more in-depth into a game, into spoiler territory, talking about story elements.
Warning, should I play like a klaxon horn there?
No, I don't know if that fits.
Oh.
But you could.
I just did it, so.
Warning. We should do that in every episode. Big klaxon.
Spoilers.
So we will be talking,
again,
we will be talking some spoilers about the game.
Yes.
Story elements. So if you haven't played the game, go play it now. If you have...
We'll wait.
Okay, that's
you back?
it.
Okay.
So welcome back.
That's all the time you needed. Trust me.
Or if you don't care, you can listen. Obviously, we, of course, want you to listen to our show. So
Yes.
So just to give you a heads up, though, that we are going to be talking about some stuff. So don't ruin it, because you'll piss me off.
That's right.
If things get ruined for you, I get mad. That's how I operate.
Like, why are you so stupid? Why did you ruin that?
The only empathy I have is for spoilers.
That is true. That is accurate.
And in that way, I feel everybody's pain.
Pretty close.
It's a terrible superpower. Anyway, so Max Payne 3 came out a couple months ago now, a month and a half ago.
About
I can't
a month
remember.
ago.
Yeah.
We've all completed it,
Yes.
and we all enjoyed it.
I
Very
did.
much. Obviously, we're here to have a private chat about it. So,
Yes.
How do we want to kick it off?
It won me over in the fact that people were telling me to play it, namely you guys. And Jeremy, you were like, I think you would like it.
Yeah.
So I was just like, I'll try it out. The other Max Payne games I've tried out.
Yeah.
I know the first one I tried out.
I played the first one too.
way back in the day, and I wasn't too into it. Wasn't too
It
impressed.
was
with
okay.
it.
I mean, you were running around in alleyways and through office buildings a lot and doing your jumping moves and all of that. Wasn't there like a weird trippy stage or something, like you're walking through like this black area and you only have like this tiny path? There was like...
There might have been.
I don't remember.
And that was the thing, because I
vaguely
thought there was
remember that.
more...
And that's where I got stuck.
I always thought there was a more of a
falling
like a supernatural feel to
Yeah.
it, with angels and things like
So
that.
did I.
Like,
Well, I
with,
think
like,
that came into the
demons and-
movie in particular.
Okay.
Because after...
I never saw the movie.
Because the
either.
movie came out, what, like almost 10 years ago or something like that?
Oh my God, has it been that long? I
Maybe.
don't think it's been that long.
Okay.
But I don't know.
I'm guessing.
It was
what's
early
his face,
Mark.
right?
It was early Mark
Wahlberg,
yeah.
but early Mila Kunis. So it might have been 7 years.
Okay.
Okay. Who cares?
I'm trying to think.
You-
Oh yeah.
So who would play Max Payne 3, the movie?
Bruce Willis.
Bruce
Yeah.
Willis, yeah. That's the obvious choice right there.
Yeah.
And not just for the bald head. It's,
Well,
it's
it
just-
doesn't. It doesn't help.
It,
when he does
it doesn't
that at
hurt.
the end.
No, yeah.
Or
But-
hurt. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's just that kind of character that he
Right.
plays.
It's
you know.
a total John
It
McClane.
is.
the Die Hard,
It
yeah.
is John McClane in a Tony Scott movie.
He's very John McClane in Max Payne 3.
Yes. Not
Like
so
that-
much in the other one.
Where he's the down and out kind of, just doing his job, and then gets
Right.
wrapped up into something, and he's like, "Fuck this! I'm going to do the right thing."
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Tony Scott thing that you mentioned.
Oh, yeah.
Because I don't remember if I talked about it on the show, but on the episode when we talked about it, it totally at the beginning
Man.
reminded me of Man on Fire.
I got it.
Hired as a bodyguard.
Oh yeah.
And that's all I could think of. And it's the way that they do the film style of the game too, with the camera effects. And
It's
things
like
like
a
that.
reverse Man on Fire. Because he was very clean.
Yeah,
Denzel was very clean at the
Right.
very beginning, and then he like flips,
Went down.
Yeah, and this is a little bit on the.
He cleans up.
He cleans
So
up
he can get a clear head.
Yeah, yeah.
So Max is at the bottom of the barrel, basically,
Yes.
at the beginning of the game, or the beginning of his story, because
Right.
it kind of jumps around in time a little bit.
It is a little out of sequence.
Max, as his unfortunate name would suggest, Max Payne, is the most woeful
Yes.
ex-cop from New Jersey
Poor guy.
ever. Everybody he fucking loves dies,
Yeah.
Yes.
gets murdered, and
He's very Punisher in his
He is.
origin story.
yeah,
a little bit, yeah.
and
Yeah.
you know he just keeps losing. Like even when he thinks he's going to win, he loses.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's been a real hard-boiled noir element in there, and I like that they continue that, even though. And I think there are a lot of people who are skeptical moving Max Payne to Brazil,
Yeah.
sunny Sao Paulo,
bright-
yeah, tropical region.
Yeah.
But I really like how they were actually really well capable of balancing sort of those gritty noir elements in the game with a very different sort of setting and a setting that feels very different from a lot of other shooters.
Well, and like we talked about too, with being the bright, colorful paradise setting of Brazil. There is an underside to that Brazil that isn't bright and colorful, and is very dirty and dark.
Yeah, but even then, you go through the game and it doesn't feel like, this is like what I've done in Grand Theft Auto a million times or something like that. It's got a different twist to it that is successful that I liked a lot.
It felt like a driven Grand Theft Auto, which, like a directed Grand Theft Auto.
Like LA.
Actually, I quite liked that. I need that.
Yeah, like LA Noir in that sense where, you have that feel and that sense, but you're being, you're being led, and it's not like so free roaming that, you get sidetracked.
And a heavy story element, as far as like a narrative driving you.
Yeah, right.
And I think that it helps with that narration of Max himself and hearing that. And the way that they do that drove me through the story.
And the way that they blend through chapters and have the overlapped videos between chapters, because the story just carries you on, and it doesn't feel like there's breaking points.
There's no stopping points, which is a problem when you want to stop playing.
It is. It actually is. No,
because I didn't know when to quit.
That's very true.
But it makes it hard to step away from it.
It does.
Because it just keeps rolling through.
That's true. I
found an 8-hour movie.
I found myself like when I sat down and played it, I got a big chunk of it done really quick because of that. I just wasn't really paying attention, and
you can lose track of time easily too, because you're like, oh, it's just continuing on.
Yeah.
So Max starts the game where he's been hired as a bodyguard.
Right. Well, should we do it in progression of the story in the game, or should we untangle that time element?
Sure. No, well, we can do it in progression of the game, because it's really only a couple times that there's a flashback scenario.
Sure.
So I guess whatever way you want to.
No, it doesn't matter to me. I was just curious.
So I mean, basically, he's hired as a bodyguard for this political family.
This rich family
in Brazil to watch them because
the Broncos,
they need it. And there's a lot. There's a couple. Is there one son and one daughter, or is there a couple sons?
There's three sons,
three
brothers,
and the one has the wife. Or the girlfriend.
And then the wife has a sister.
Yes. So you're basically
another bodyguard guy
protecting. Passos is the guy who basically came and got you and hired you for this job.
Right.
To bodyguard.
We went to academy together.
Yes. And so it evolves from there. Whereas all of a sudden there becomes these hits on these people. There's a kidnapping attempt.
Several.
Several.
Yeah.
You stop one, then there's one that you don't stop.
Right.
And they do off.
And I'm like, why aren't we keeping these fuckers at home? I'm not doing my job.
Right. I know. That's my thing. It's like, why are we going out to a club?
Yeah, I'd punch those guys out.
I guess they do whatever they want to do.
It doesn't matter if you go to work. Come on.
Yeah.
That's true.
That's true, I guess. I'll get over it.
So then they get kidnapped. Marcelo, I think, is who it is.
Marcelo is the youngest brother. It's Fabiana who
gets kidnapped. And
the wife. Yeah.
That's right. I'm trying to remember the progression. So
Fabiana gets kidnapped, and she basically vanishes for most of the game. It was a little bit tragic there. And in the other Max Payne games, there's always a female protagonist, usually some sort of love interest. It was his wife, I think, in the first one or something like that. But that is kind of motivating him. I liked that Max didn't really have a connection to this woman other than it was his job. And so it was really it was less, I'm getting revenge for this woman, and more like, I need to get my shit together and actually do what I was hired to protect people, and now I'm failing at
I'm
that.
a failure.
Right.
So this is the only thing I can change about my failure in a life.
Right.
Which everything else is in the shitter.
Yeah.
So I this is all I got left.
And I think they did a great job building Max's character in that way. And so then
Well, you see his detective, you see that his being a cop is coming to light, and you can kind of see him going...
He can't shake it.
Yeah, and he's going, well, there's something else here. This is just not a kid, this is not a kidnapping. There's something else involved here, and then there's a bigger story where, some people are just kind of shrugging it off, and he's like, well, why are these... and then you've got the military that are in there, like the security that roams the streets.
Military police.
Military police that roam the streets, and...
other private military groups.
that are just hanging out, and he just...
The gangs.
He sees, he starts seeing things happen, and as they unfold, and he starts to drink less. I think that's really... You see it from the very beginning. from the very beginning towards the end. He's still drinking, but it's like,
but he hits that halfway point.
Yeah,
and that's where he's really like, I am fucking up. You know,
yeah,
I can't be a failure at everything.
Right.
And so the one thing I'm going to goddamn do is protect these people,
all I got left.
even if it kills me.
Yeah.
And so he makes that change, and he's like, I can't do it, all messed up like I am. So yeah, he stops drinking, still taking pain pills, but
Well,
when you build that into your healing system for the game, you can't exactly give it up.
you can't get that element out of there. No.
But
I do like those comments.
Although it is ironic, painkillers.
Yes, right.
I do like those comments though towards the end because he's cleaning. He's talking about I just had to clean my head, and then you find painkillers. Oh, the spoils of someone else's drugs being left around. I guess I'll take them. And I'm just like, okay, it works out.
You got to suspend my disbelief.
Yeah,
I like that they didn't go over the top with like one-liners. There are a few things, but it's usually like in small private moments.
Sure, yeah,
yeah. But I kind of ran into like he kept saying the same thing. Like,
really?
Every time I'd find pills,
I
and
didn't
I'm
get
like,
that so much.
boy.
yeah. I liked how they mixed it up though. It wasn't the same over and over.
But then it all, as Sean was alluding to, it turns into this tangled political mess,
Right.
With cops investigating cops and trying to find out what's going on with who's funding these kidnappers and what their motivation is, and
Yeah, because at some point,
really nice mystery.
They're just,
I liked that.
They're
Yeah.
just
Just
rounding
really
up people
web
and
that's
taking
going
them
on.
off,
Right.
and taking off with them.
well, yeah, and are you talking about like just the random people?
Yeah, well,
That's an additional thing,
Right.
Like, so there are these people disappearing, and I love how that's just like a very subtle side story, subplot in the beginning, but then it kind of comes in more later. Did you guys watch the TVs?
Yes.
I loved finding them and all that. So, and the TVs were great because they were either just kind of little kitschy throw-ins for the Max Payne world, but then you would also get like little glimmers of like information that could be used to figure out, so to kind of put the pieces together later on in the story.
Yeah, they'd have like news story about like the kidnapping or like the people in the shanty towns that are being kidnapped from here and there. And
Yeah, because there was that one scene too where in the favelas that he's seeing all those people getting round up, and he's like, "What the fuck are they even doing?
Yeah,
like, what is going on?"
And I like how he's, he's kind of like the bullet time bullet.
Yeah,
he's moving along, man, and he just kind of keeps moving in a direction until he hits something.
Yeah,
and then once he hits something, he goes in another direction.
Right.
And so he's just kind of follow. I love how lost he is, and putting him in a different setting. I think that added to that as well.
Yeah, because he doesn't speak the language.
And I love that they don't translate that. You turn on the subtitles,
that too.
you get Portuguese.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you don't get
That's
English
awesome.
subtitles.
Oh,
You get
nice.
Portuguese subtitles.
See, and that's an awesome element where it puts you in his role as
Right.
far as like you don't know what's going on.
I think that is vital because, his alienation in there and,
it's 100% first person.
Right.
Like you are that character.
Yeah, exactly.
And you don't know what's going on.
Right.
You only
Unless you
know
speak
what
Portuguese.
you only know what Max knows in the story.
Right.
And they build that in too when we talked about the flashbacks, when those come in at key moments where he's kind of thinking back to those events, because there are a couple flashbacks in there where he goes back to one. Basically, Passos shows up for the first time in New Jersey, and he's in a bar, and
he's really ground in. Like I'm guessing that stool he's sitting on has his perfect butt print.
He's done. And there's these punk kids that are starting shit in there,
the Jersey Shore kids,
right?
Yes,
and so they start, throwing a fit, or like, and then there's another girl that's involved there that they start harassing, and then that's when he starts getting defensive,
and it blows up,
from there with one of them getting shot.
Right?
Is that Passos? Does he shoot him, or does
no?
I think Max
shoots him.
Yeah, he's like, fuck.
Because it goes into a bullet time.
Because the guy's going to shoot you.
Right.
I mean, the guy pulls a piece on you, so you have to shoot first.
Although I did delay for a little bit. I'm like, is this a good idea?
Yeah.
So you end up killing that guy, and Passos was there to hire you, or, basically has
recruit you.
sought you out.
Yeah.
So you kind of get thrown in with Passos right away, of, escaping this because you find out that kid was a mob boss son.
Right.
So now the mob's after you, and that leads to a couple different adventures in flashbacks where you're with Passos and kind of, forming this bond, and basically is a perfect time for Max to leave the country.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, that is a motivation at that point.
And as you find out stuff later, the orchestration for all of it is really quite nice.
Right.
Because it does feel fairly fluid and seamless in terms of what happens, but
Like he was
like Max was motivating these things.
Right, and Max was adamant to not take this job.
Right.
I mean, he wasn't looking for the work at the time, but it became an opportune moment when everybody in New Jersey wants him dead.
Yeah.
So that's a good time to leave the country.
Yeah. And I also liked the flashback in Panama when he's on the boat, one of his early gigs, working with the family.
Yeah.
And
And everybody's doing drugs.
yeah, and he's at a super low point
Right.
there. I mean, that I think was maybe the lowest point for Max throughout the entire game, and it just turns into an absolute shitstorm. That was like maybe one of the more horrific parts.
Yeah, I really liked
game.
it because you go down. He basically passes out, and you wake up in your room, and you hear gunfire.
Right.
And so you're kind of stumbling out of bed, and you're finding out that there's people on the ship that are shooting everybody.
Yeah.
Or a military group or somebody.
Yeah.
And so you shoot your way out, and you get up to the top, and there's like everybody's dead.
Yeah.
And you have no idea what went on. And that's when you're starting to piece together. There's a reporter in the main game in real time.
Yeah.
That is giving you information about how, like, Passos, isn't he the one that's tipping off that, like, maybe you can't trust everybody who's around you?
I can't
remember how the motivation for that comes.
Yeah, he may have said something.
Because that's what's making this flashback occur. Because basically Max is thinking back to, why didn't I realize this shit sooner? That there was kind of some dirtiness going on here.
Yeah.
And that's when.
No, it was the cop.
Okay, the cop.
It's the cop.
Yeah.
It's when
I was thinking he's a reporter, but he is a cop.
No, he's
a cop.
Yeah, he's a regular cop, not one of the special forces.
And he's saying, "Hey, we've looked into this stuff." And
he's like, "Did you really think everything was kosher in Panama?"
Yeah.
right.
And I love Max in those scenes because he's like, "I don't fucking know anymore."
Right, exactly.
He's just like, his frustration over what's happening is really tantamount, and I like that. He's reacting in a very realistic way to things. He's very visceral, fight back when people push against him.
And that was also an amazing job from the voice acting.
Yes,
because it was
definitely.
Total inflection done and all that stuff where you really feel, there was acting done in that role and not just,
right.
Lay down a line.
Right. Not, yeah, exactly.
Because his reaction was amazing to some of that stuff.
I liked it a lot.
I don't know what's going on.
Yeah. And
Seriously.
you're like, oh, I'm sorry, Max.
I don't either, Max. But I probably know Passos is dirty. So you should be realizing this.
Probably.
I actually will see, and I didn't really like the choreography of that whole setup because I knew they were going to do the double turn.
Yeah.
Where Passos was going to be a bad guy, but he's not. And the reason for that is because you're helping his pregnant girlfriend halfway through the game.
Right,
where you have her, and I'm like, you're not going to be saving his pregnant girlfriend, and then he's dirty at the end, and you got to kill him.
Yeah.
Like, that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So it's going to be where he's the bad guy, but I didn't know all this other stuff was happening, and it's exactly how it played out.
But see, I kind of liked some of that stuff because it's like, I can't remember the first two games very much, but based on the way that they kind of allude to what happened in the first two games, Max Payne just always flat out loses. Like, no matter what he does, he loses. And he still loses a lot in this game. The killing of Fabiana was a shock moment.
I was fucking, my jaw was dropped because
especially because it's like halfway through the game.
You've played half the game.
Yeah.
You played half the game, and your goal is to save this girl.
Right.
Yeah,
and you just watched her got fucking killed.
And just really nonchalantly almost.
Yeah. It was like a non-issue. It's like, well, we're fucking done with this.
And I'm like, oh,
like, that was my motivation up until this point. Like, now what does he fucking do?
Just to tear it all down. But and
I loved it though.
And then even when he starts to find out what's going on beyond it, and he thinks like, I'm doing something. Yeah. And like in the derelict hotel, and he's up on the rooftop, and he's confronting that one guy, and he's like, "Oh yeah, you're the savior of the poor. Look at all this great you've done. All these people you're paid to protect are killed.
Yeah.
All these poor people are being killed. All this stuff. You're not doing shit." And he's like, "Well, at least I'm fucking trying." and really, this is after Max's turn and his head shaving and all of that. And so there is the new Max, and so he kind of. I like in the end he kind of wins a little bit. He doesn't win everything, and he doesn't. It's not a happy ending necessarily,
right?
But there's a bit of a victory there, and so you get to that end scene, and I find that a really uplifting scene. Like
where he's just on the beach.
Yeah, he's just on the beach at the bar, and the news is playing in the background, and then he picks up his bag and he walks off, and with the sun in the background, and I'm like, that's a really cool ending.
Because at least he's got some self-respect now.
Exactly. He's finally saved somebody. He saved himself.
Yeah. As cheesy as it sounds, but
I know.
like playing it out, it totally makes sense.
Right. Yeah.
where that was exactly who he was saving.
Yeah.
But God, yeah, that moment with Fabiana, like I couldn't believe it. Like that's when I played it.
And then with Marciano later.
Yeah,
because that's even more kind of nonchalant because you just stumble on that.
Yeah, and you're watching them and they got him in that tire.
Yeah,
is that it?
Yeah, the microwave. That's what that's called. That's an actual.
Oh yeah,
that's
when
an
they
actual gang
light him on fire.
Killing. Yeah,
yeah.
And I'm like, holy shit, they just fucking burned that guy.
Oh yeah.
So it's like you're not saving anybody.
No, yeah. Well,
although I assumed you were not.
And that's great because that's right before. Yeah, that's right before you go into escorting Giovanna. I think is her name or something.
I think so.
And so. You've just lost two major characters from the first half of the game.
That was your whole motivation.
And that were your whole motivation for most of it. And so now, I became really protective of her. And thankfully it's not true escort, really. It's not like, oh, you gotta pick them off before they kill her or something like that. It's really just more of sort of a book ending or a way to frame the action.
And honestly, when Fabiana,
still put that tension.
That's what made me like immediately say, Sean, you need to play this game because it's the Fabiana thing, where it felt like a Red Dead moment, where you could obviously tell the Hauser like involvement with the writing in that story element and the Rockstar writing element, because it is one of those things where that typically is not going to happen.
Right.
But that's the kind of shit that can happen in a Rockstar game where it's like sometimes it's not happy.
Yeah.
And sometimes things don't go your way.
Right.
So now what are you going to do?
Yeah.
Well, they bring it that whole cinematic feel, and they. I mean, this one really had it. I mean, I was trying to figure out trying to figure out who the bad guy was. The one pulling all the strings and the one that is doing all the problems here. And I loved how they had all these little tiny red herrings throughout, or little, like someone would mention. I remember the one brother's like, whenever he was hammered, he was always saying how he's in love with the wrong woman.
Right.
And I'm like,
obviously he's in love with Fabiana.
Yeah, and so like, okay, well then you're like, right, he's the, and I really liked how they set that up because right off the bat, the guy who did it was who I thought was the one behind it.
Right, same here.
But then throughout the whole thing, they kept throwing these little,
twists and turns,
and I thought that was fantastic because it kept me. It wasn't like it had that movie feel to it. And I think that's why I went through this game pretty fast because it just kept me like motivated as that.
Yeah.
I forgot, before you lose Fabiana and Marciano, you lose Rodrigo.
Yeah.
Basically the head of the family.
Oh yeah,
who gets murdered in his own secure office while you're trying to protect him.
Right.
I mean,
because they shut everything down.
Yeah, it's just like they keep kicking Max's legs out from under him. You're working your ass off in this game to fight off hordes of guys. By the way, it does get it's a little over the top.
A little.
Yeah.
I mean,
Just
there's something like 18 million people in Sao Paulo. Max probably kills at least 8 million in the course of this game.
There's a lot of people.
There's a lot of dudes Max kills. And I like how that kind of comes back later, actually at the end of that same Office chapter, when Max confronts one of the paramilitary guys and he's like, why'd you kill Rodrigo? Or why'd you come after Rodrigo? And he's like, we came after you. You killed so many of us. Yeah. I'm like, yeah. You didn't think people would take this a little personally,
right?
Max?
You're fucking killing their army. One guy.
Right.
They're going to be a little pissed off.
Pocket of painkillers.
That was the best thing is when you save and you get the whole office shut down and then he's dead and you're like, what?
I know, it was just so disheartening.
And you're sitting there going, what?
I kind of saw it coming.
But at the same time, and he's sitting there going, how is this happening? You're like, yeah, right, how is it happening?
And then they blow up that whole building, and I love that element of the gameplay as far as that level when you're walking through the burned down building or the burned out building and trying to escape it. And you're kind of not moving very well because you're kind of beat up.
Well, and this is his low point, isn't it? Isn't it after this point that he shaves his head? Because his head is shaved when he goes to the
because that's when he's
favela.
like, fuck this.
And so he basically, I mean, it's to use imagery, he's in hell,
right?
In the end.
Well, because he was also
because everything's burning.
Didn't they pull him back in, like, and basically say you need to be protecting me here? Isn't that what?
Yeah, I mean,
because he was
gets called in,
because basically she was still kidnapped,
right.
And he wanted to go find her, and they were like...
They go out to find her, they also try to pay him off, and shit just keeps happening to them, and, like, that's why I love, he's struggling so hard, and it looks like you get, like, so close to victory, but then it switches, and the great thing, this is where the over-the-top part of a billion, jillion enemies doesn't really bother me because you get to that point where he then loses and you're like, Well, fucking course he lost. Have you seen what he's been up against for this whole time?
Yeah. Right, exactly.
I'm surprised he didn't lose before. It was only inevitable.
So yeah, I really liked what they did with the story, and I had a blast with it. You know what it reminded me of? Because even at the end, you go to like an airport, and I liked the going through the airport scene and going through the baggage thing, and you're laying on the baggage line or whatever it's called. I can't remember.
Die Hard 2 right there.
Yeah, and you're laying on it and shooting people as you're moving through.
It was so pulled back
it.
to that, and I'm like, I'm just gonna lay on this thing and just keep rolling around it.
You know what it felt like to me too was Kane and Lynch 2 was terrible.
Yeah.
And this is like a good Kane and Lynch
Yeah.
too, because it kind of follows.
It's
you're
trying
in like
to do the same kind of thing. Yeah,
it is. Well, Kane and Lynch tried to do this.
Yeah,
and
there
it
you
failed
go.
hard.
Yeah, I agree.
Because you even end with them getting on that plane at the end, and they're like in the airport, and then it's just like over, and I'm like, this is terrible. This game does everything right,
Oh, that's true.
which is funny. And there's no nude scene running around.
I was getting a lot. I was getting a lot of Kane and Lynch in my head when I was playing
Yeah,
it.
because you're just shooting all those dudes.
Yeah.
And progressing through.
Yep.
Yeah, well, and violent, gritty noir shooter in a foreign country.
But
it
this
was
had
terrible.
the story. This had the story.
It did.
Yep. And graphically, it was I thought it was done very well. I thought it was crisp and clean, and I thought some of this stuff was really like I didn't know it was like animated at times. It just was. I think my brain was just affecting, and and I'm like watching a movie.
And fantastic scoring helped.
Yep.
Yeah,
Like the music stuff was awesome.
everything. I especially liked all the inclusion of the Brazilian music, like especially when you're in a favela. There's a lot of Brazilian rap playing in the background.
Yeah.
And it really sets the atmosphere. And I like how when you go into the favela, you're going into a dangerous territory, but at first, they don't focus on like, oh, there's gangs running around. There are dudes with, machine guns standing around kind of protecting the area, which, happens.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you just see a ton of people, like just regular people around. And I like that they set that atmosphere. It's kind of similar to like when we talked about Dead Space 2 and how Dead Space 2, one of the advantages it had over Dead Space 1 was that feeling that it felt lived in.
Right.
And so, the Sao Paulo they build here definitely feels lived in. It feels very like a real place.
Well, yeah, and also when he's walking down the street and people are running away or like closing up their windows or running in because they know it's not a normal situation that this American's walking down the street, and so it's probably not good.
Well, and they build in some nice cinematic ones, like later when you're having to run, I think after you go to the strip club, and you got a gun out.
Yes.
And there's this one I particularly remember, because I played through the game a couple times already, and you're running up like these stairs, and this dude fucking opens his inner door, there's like a screen door, and you're running up there like with your gun out, and he's like, whoa! And he just like, and he's like just a few feet in front of you, and I'm like, that's a great little moment.
Yeah, and also it doesn't help that they've programmed you wherever you see a dude, you're going to shoot him. So I'm like getting ready. Like anytime I see anybody pop out, okay, good.
And then they shut the door. I've done that. You could be going down like a long, like narrow friggin' alleyway.
Yeah.
And then a body will come across, and I say body because I shoot at them.
Because you don't pay attention.
And it will look like back at you, and then they run the other way, and I'm just like, oh,
sorry,
buddy.
I don't know if you know this, but like everybody's trying to kill me.
It's like I jump backwards, slow mo, and I'm like, oh, I'll just hit the ground and watch you. Boom.
And they're like, what the fuck is that guy doing?
I had to learn how to turn off the bullet dodge, because I would do that a lot too. Or just
press down,
press the right joystick.
Yeah.
Because I would also go into especially if I was low on health and didn't have many painkillers, I would try to bullet dodge into a room just in case to get a small advantage.
Yeah.
But the gameplay pretty good.
Yeah.
Really solid. Some of the bullet dodging could be very frustrating in points. Biggest point was chapter 4 or 5 where you're on the docks, because if you bullet dodge in just the slightest wrong way, Max Payne is going to go sliding into the water.
Oh, yeah.
And if there's any enemies around, that means you're dead.
Nice.
They'll do a little cutscene of an enemy coming up on, which is realistic.
So what happens if there's not enemies?
You're fine. You can climb out of the water.
Oh, you get out of it. Okay.
Yeah, but that's very rare in that section.
Yeah.
So there are times you're up on top of buildings and on scaffolding, and again, I'm like, oh, I got a bullet dodge, and then you're like, haha, I got you.
I got shit.
I always like the bullet dodge and then you get all slow, and then you hit a wall. You think you
Oh,
had,
yeah.
you think you had the doorway even. You think you had the doorway even, and you're just like, you just fall. She slides down.
It's the clumsiest looking thing, and I think that's actually pretty good.
Yeah.
It should stop the other people from shooting you. They should be laughing.
And then
They just double over laughing.
And then you can shoot them. Laying on the ground.
But yeah, so I really liked the gameplay. You know, it was very violent, but again, the story kept me.
Yeah,
kept me from
agreed.
feeling overwhelmed by that violence.
I rarely.
And the redemption of Max really.
Yeah,
motivated
exactly.
me.
You know, when he shaved his head, I was like, "This is pretty sweet." I'm
Yeah,
like, dude, why you got that Hawaiian shirt on though? I mean, you are drawing
trying
eyes
to blend in.
like left and right. He looked like a weird tourist, I'll tell you that. 'Cause he's got his gun holster.
I know
on.
he's got his double gun holster walking
Yeah.
into the favela. You know, I mean, you know, you need to be protected, but at the same time,
But let people.
he is going to be expecting some shit.
I can think of better ways to disguise yourself.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
But he didn't care at that moment. I thought that was pretty badass. I started using the bullet time towards the end of the game.
Yeah.
I found myself. I just.
You need to.
And I should have been doing it right from the get go.
Yeah.
I found myself not using that as much as
Right.
I probably should have.
I'm in the same boat.
And then I would find myself using it at times where I was like, crap. You know, I'd hit it, and I'm just like,
You don't want to.
I'm like,
Well, I like that there was constant bullet time you could use with the bullet dodge, but there were the disadvantages of that I've described already, flying through the air. Or hitting a wall, and all of a sudden your bullet time is gone, and you're just lying in a crumpled heap on the floor. But then you also build up like adrenaline, basically, as you continue on, and you know, as you're hitting enemies and not getting hit, or maybe if you do get hit. Anyway, so you can activate that just by pressing the right joysticks. So you could use that in conjunction with cover, and I would use that a lot, especially against, you know, high-powered enemies.
Right.
Where I would start to pop out and then activate the bullet time as my gun was aiming. And, you know, take them out and then turn it off real quick. You're really conserving it.
But once I started kind of getting used to it, some of the gameplay really became like just it opened up, and it was like all of a sudden like there were moments where I knew I wanted to do those bullet times. Like if I went into like a situation, I got mowed down. I'm like, okay, and then like I would like. Bullet time, and I'd see that gas tank because that was the other thing too. You come into these shooting galleries, so to speak, and there's things you can't see, and that was what I really enjoyed about it. So you go into those slow mo, and then you can point them out, and then it was just like, or I'd roll, grab a shotgun, and just blow some guy in the face, which I thought was like
I like that they did some of those fluent things,
and. That really, really made me wish I would have played, but I wasn't going to go back through and play through the whole beginning of it again. But it really...
You're not Craig.
Haters.
Well...
I'm going to play it again now that I got it back.
And that's awesome.
It's the thing is, some of those scenes, I just had to slow the fuck down. I think I talked about it on our show when we talked about the game. It's like I was just going in and wanting to shoot everybody as fast as possible.
No.
And you just need to slow down and sometimes stay in cover for a second and let them expose themselves, or, you know, do something along those lines.
Yeah. And the bullet time can make you feel a little invincible every once in a while.
Yeah.
You know, and so I would get lulled into it. Yeah, exactly. I'm like, oh, maybe jumping in between all 8 of those guys was not the best idea.
It was good for about 2 seconds.
Yes.
And now I'm laying on the ground and they're all shooting me in the face.
I like some of the logistics for weaponry. Like, for example, if you... Because you have 2 hand weapons, and you can carry like a main weapon, but you can't... a two-handed weapon, but you can't use your two-handed weapon and use both single-handed weapons at the same time, because, you know, you actually had to carry it around. There wasn't like a magical bag that you stuck it in. And all of that. But and you could share ammo between different types of weapons. So
I thought that was really nice.
I was really paying attention to what kinds of weapons were around, and I'm like, I probably don't want another pistol, because, you know, then I'm going to just burn through my bullets faster.
Yep.
And I don't think I mentioned on the show, sorry to change gears again here, but it was something I wanted to talk about, is I love that airport scene when you are going into the runway, basically, or the hangar area. So, and that's when it kicks in that awesome song. I can't remember the title.
So when you're
ever.
going through the terminal?
Yeah, the terminal. That's what I was looking for before. And so it starts, and then it adds in the vocals, like, as you move up a little bit, it progresses. So it'll just keep looping the music part early on.
It builds.
But it's like, that was a very Red Dead moment for me too, where they had those music elements in Red Dead that really pinpointed or like accented that whole scene.
Right.
And that's what it felt like to me, where I was like, holy fuck, I just want to keep doing this scene over and over because it's kind of badass.
Yeah.
The music was awesome.
Although sometimes that fight could be hard.
It was hard. That's why I had to do it a bunch of times. But I didn't mind it because the music was awesome.
Right, exactly.
So I'm like, this is kind of cool.
Yeah.
I love that element.
I loved all the little elements. There's a lot of great elements in there, representing Sao Paulo and sort of things in there. I like in the police station, it cracks me up because you go in the police station and you know how the food stereotype in the U.S. for policemen is...
Pig.
Donuts or pigs, I suppose. Yeah, that works too.
Hater.
But
pigs. Fucking pig.
I'm like, food, pig.
I eat pig. I call it by its real
You're like,
name.
I don't take those French influenced names for meat.
Not pork. Not pork chop.
Okay.
Pig.
But you go into, because there's this whole scene where Max, and it's really over the top, where Max just basically busts into a police station.
Right.
And you go around, and you'll see on the some of the desks there will be these plates of like these little conical looking things. And that's a food called coxina, which is basically like spiced meat, usually chicken or whatnot, kind of covered in mashed potatoes and then lightly fried. It's delicious.
It sounds awesome. Yeah,
it's totally awesome. But I'm like,
why'd you bring me any of that back?
I'm like, why the fuck is there so much coxina in here? Because I'm like turning around and looking at stuff, and my fiance helped me figure it out because coxina is actually a derogatory term for the military police because they would get paid this salary, and the salary was, they would also get like a stipend to pay for lunch, and the amount that they got for lunch would basically pay for coffee and 2 coxina. And also, coxina is basically junk food, and so it's kind of similar to the donut thing, and it's very delicious, and you can get it all over the place there. And so, it's got this attachment there, and so, she sent me like this picture of like some graffiti in Sao Paulo that has like police officers as Kushina, like they're giant Kushina,
that's
like
funny,
like
nice.
Hunting people down and all that. And so I was like, well, that's a really neat little element in there, that most people are gonna skim by and be like, what,
right.
What's these fucking cones on the desk for? But if they put a lot of work and thought into the game
that people aren't even going to ever notice.
Well, but now some of them will.
Not everybody.
I'm spreading it around.
That's right. You are. You do.
But
did she also send you a picture of a microwave?
No,
somebody on fire.
I found out about the microwave. If you like this game, if you like this story, if you like the sort of the gang warfare and the corrupt police and the military police.
I love corrupt police.
If you like that sort of story, I highly recommend a couple of Brazilian movies. The English title is Elite Squad. Tropa de Leche is the Portuguese, but you can find it on Netflix. Elite Squad 2, I believe, is on Instant Queue, but I've only seen one. And it's got Rockstar said that was one of the inspirations for the game, and it's got a lot of similar elements to it. And there's a scene with a microwave in there, and it's
Is it brutal?
It's if you thought it was brutal watching that in the game,
Awesome.
But and I liked that they were able to kind of take a lot of those elements, those ideas that came from a Brazilian-made movie about, their own.
Well, and to add
and
authenticity to the game, to the product,
right?
Even if it's not fully aware to anybody or to some people who are playing it.
Exactly.
There's authentic aspects to it,
right?
Which
only it doesn't feel generic in that way,
right? That's awesome.
Yeah.
One of the other
that's why we have the professor here.
My job.
One of the other
helps us out.
The gameplay
learning.
One of the other gameplay moments that I liked was I almost like the turret sections.
Turret sections.
Well, almost like it, where you have the unlimited bullets.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And you go pretty much into scope on some of them.
Yeah.
I really liked a lot of those.
No,
I thought those were really done very well. I thought, and we were talking about the flashbacks with the story, and I thought with those little elements kept the game just constantly different but being the same.
Right.
It was like the same type of things, but you were getting that little change here and there, which kept it fresh. And I think that's what kept me playing, as at the same time being so episodic. Not episodic, but just being like constantly rolling.
Right.
And getting into the action and wanting to know what happened next. But those were, I loved that scope one at the football stadium. Was pretty sweet. So I like that one.
Good times.
Did you guys play the multiplayer?
I didn't.
You did? Okay, good, Sean. So what did you think of the multiplayer?
Multiplayer, I enjoyed it. I started doing a little bit better with some of it. I just played mostly just team deathmatch.
Rookie team deathmatch?
Yeah. Normally that's what I do. I like team deathmatch. If anything, I'm not a big fan of like King of the Hill or Guardian. I didn't even see what they had for an option there, but I liked it. I thought I had some fun with it. We were in that office building that I'm not a big fan of.
That one's
anywhere.
hard. That one's hard.
And it took me a little bit.
Little partitions.
Yeah, and it took me a little bit to get the hang of it, but I started having some fun with it. And you talked about it on the show, but I really enjoyed your kill screen is very cool.
Yeah.
Because it shows you where you got shot. Mm-hmm. So you've got your it's like a whole type of what do people shoot at?
A target. That's
Target.
right. Yeah, it does show. It does show like how where you've been hit.
It's a silhouette target, and it has. And I got so many crotch shots. Like my guys always die from getting shot. And then there was one where my head looked like completely had a big hole in it. So I must have got. It was
maybe a grenade.
Yeah,
that's the grenade. Yeah, that's the symbol for grenade.
And my head blew off. But once I started kind of getting the hang of it, I enjoyed I thought it was really cool, fun.
So you didn't play the gang war stuff?
I did not.
The gang war is so good because you have these different rounds, and it's basically a team deathmatch with different flavors going through. And there are capture the flag ones every once in a while, but it mixes around, and then that just builds points that you get added to your score when you go into the final round, which is always a team deathmatch.
Yeah.
And so if your team did really well, you have a big advantage going into the deathmatch. If you did poorly, you got a lot of shooting to do.
Yeah.
I thought that was just a really nice way to also encourage people to just keep mixing it up.
Yeah.
Mixing up the gameplay.
And I guess I don't remember you talking about Bullet Time being in the multiplayer.
It is. I didn't use it a ton.
Yeah, and I didn't either. I thought it was neat.
You got to get adrenaline
though.
for it.
Yeah.
And one of the big ways you get adrenaline, I mean, I think you can add perks to that or something. But that's it, because you use adrenaline for perks too. And I was using my adrenaline more for perks than I was for bullet time.
Okay.
But like if you loot bodies, sometimes you can find adrenaline, and that.
How does it work in multiplayer?
It kind of just like. It depends where you are in relation to it, and like there'll be kind of a red flash or something like the screen changes, slightly,
a little bit,
and things slow down just for a little bit.
But what's it do for the other person?
I don't know.
That's
so I don't know.
Question.
I don't know if anyone in front of me has ever been in it, because I've never seen someone moving through the air slow. So I think it just slows down your stuff. I don't know how.
But see, they're still moving at regular speed. So what? I don't understand.
No,
how
but they're not.
It slows down everybody.
Yeah,
is what it does.
Oh, okay.
But the thing is that the perks are so nice. I think most people save it up for the perks.
Gotcha.
I mean,
so
I did have people using bullet time.
Yeah.
But a lot of times you're just running around, and all of a sudden it's like,
oh, okay.
And you're like, what the hell was that?
That's what my confusion was. Okay. So it slows down for everybody.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
If I remember correctly, it's been a little while since I played it, but
yeah, and I didn't see it on my side of it, so. But I enjoyed it. I thought it was good. Plus, getting into and buying stuff and having some fun and like really diving into the multiplayer would be nice. And it seemed like there was a lot of
your characters.
And I saw, I mean that's a winner right there.
Look at him selling you on that.
Well, they had multiple factions.
He knows where to go.
Customized each faction character.
Yeah. See, that kind of stuff is really that helps.
I think they just released some DLC for it too. It's mostly, I think it's all multiplayer stuff.
New map stuff.
Just maps, factions.
A John McClane skin.
Nice. That'd be awesome.
Progression.
You just make them.
Get all 4 movies.
Nice.
The hair loses each time.
And you can actually make a faction on their social club, Rockstar Social Club. Like you can join a group, and like there's certain perks to doing that. And, you can find people more easily. I didn't get into that, but that's too social for me.
Yeah. Too social for Craig.
That's what I just said. Thank you.
I was hammering it home.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
I appreciate it.
Anything else about Max Payne 3?
I loved it. I
wasn't
wasn't sure because these violent games can put me off, but of course I was interested because of Sao Paulo.
Yeah.
And I got started, and right away everything was sucking me in.
Cool.
Like the presentation really sucked me in.
I had you had mentioned Red Dead. I had that same kind of feel, like the LA Noire type of vibe to the game that I dug it a lot. I almost wanted it to be a two player game. Because
like
I totally had all the the 50 Cent. I had the Call of Juarez, not Call of Juarez, but the Kane and Lynch, like the games that are like I enjoy as a 2-player experience. Like, that would have been sweet if, like, maybe you could jump in with past those parts.
Yeah, that would have been nice.
Yeah, just as a little extra, because there was something about it that I wanted to, like, experience with someone else.
You know what's cool is that it would be awesome if they did a DLC that's a co-op.
Yeah.
And, like, maybe a mission that's with the two of them.
Yeah.
Since it's already got a multiplayer element, so you know that they're banking on multiple people owning the game.
Right.
Yeah.
It'd be neat if they did a little DLC pack that was just the two of them doing a co-op.
Yeah.
That would be cool.
That'd be awesome.
But
Maybe another flashback or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you both run through it together.
But there was something about the game that reminded me of those games that I like. Well, Kane Lynch is a bad example, but mostly like 50 Cent or Two Man or like Army of Two.
Army of Two, yeah.
It had that Army of Two kind of vibe with it too, but just with the bullet time and all that.
Gears of War.
Gears of War was
Gears of Juarez.
Oh man.
Gears of War.
Oh, there's a crossover.
That's what you were wanting.
Oh man, all dizzy all the time.
All right, so everybody should play Max Payne 3. But you shouldn't be listening to this if you haven't already. Right?
What if they really wanted to know what was going to happen?
It was really,
now you know.
It's really pretty.
Everything.
And what happens at the beginning of the game, it happens at the end.
Yes.
What?
There's that flash forward.
Yeah. Because the whole beginning
In the airport.
and you're following that guy that's got like no arms and legs.
I don't remember that from the beginning at all.
Yeah, it was.
He probably skipped it.
It happens very early in the.
I probably didn't skip it. I probably just don't
cinematics, 'cause
remember
You can't
it.
skip it.
No.
Yeah, and I probably went past it and totally forgot that they show you that at the beginning.
What did you guys do?
That's awesome.
It's a pretty weighted.
No, did you just let him live at the end?
That's what I said.
Well, he dies, but
Yeah, but
I'd let him die on his own.
well, I didn't know.
But then when I was replaying, I shot him.
Okay,
to move it along.
I just
Just to
wanted
move it along
I
a little
wanted to make
faster.
sure.
No, I didn't shoot him.
Because I was kind of looking at him and I'm like, and then time ran out. I'm like, man, I should have shot him.
Yeah, the time did run out before I thought it was going to run out, but at the same time, I was holding off just because of the whole redemption of Max.
Yeah.
And I didn't think that it
Right, that's why I
fits
didn't do it.
To shoot
I'm
him
like,
at that point.
I already shot the fucking grenade that's on his arm. I'm
yeah.
not going to shoot him in the face.
Okay.
That's not what I'm doing.
See, and that's why, like, I was wondering how you guys, because that's when I was sitting there, I'm like, I had to, like, think about what I wanted to do.
Yeah, I was role playing it at that point.
Yeah.
And then I was
Exactly.
just like, I don't really want it, and then it was over with anyway. And I'm like, he'll die.
Right.
What?
Exactly.
Although I did want to kill him after, like, 5 times of trying to kill him anyway. Oh, son of a bitch.
That's a problem.
That whole part.
Yeah.
Why can't you shoot out Jeep tires?
I know. I don't know.
Right?
Yeah.
Armored.
Armored
Damn it.
tires.
They're
Sorry.
all full. They're the full rubber ones.
They put armor all on them.
That doesn't work.
It's like the
trust me.
Batmobile.
That's how it works.
I put armor all on a lot of things and then shoot it, and it doesn't. That cat will never come back.
And your body.
Never.
Oh.
That's toxic.
Can we stop now? Are we done?
I think so.
All right. Signedinpodcast.com is our website. We'd love to hear from you from there. On there, you can find links to our Twitter, our Facebook, our forums, all the other Pseudo Radio shows. If you've also played Max Payne 3 and want to contribute, we will have a thread for this up on our forums. You can contribute on there. Or you can email us at comments@signedinpodcast.com, and we'd love to hear from you.
That's right.
All right?
For Max Payne 4,
Yes, get ready.
beach years.
And if you love this, you should play Red Dead
Where he
Redemption.
goes to Hawaii.
You should play Red Dead, and we can talk about it.
I should. It's all the extra elements. I get sucked into
I
that.
know you
do.
It's a problem.
Ignore them.
I should.
It's
I've
hard.
been thinking about it.
but
That game's good.
Because then
Story.
I'm afraid that I'll finish the story and then I'll be like, well, now it feels weird going back and doing all this stuff, having finished that, like all the extra stuff.
it's when he starts talking, then you're like, I don't want to play it anymore. Because you want the other character back.
I don't know.
He doesn't know.
The one that comes back from time in the DeLorean. slash,
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Slash
I don't know what's
steam
happening.
engine.
Let's shut this off.
Doc Brown.
Doc Brown's the name.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Later. Bye.